Hey guys, John here again, this time with a look at the launch day version of Uncharted 4's multiplayer mode. But first, just to refresh your memory, the multiplayer mode of this game operates at 1600 by 900 at 60 frames per second, as opposed to the 1080p 30 presentation we saw in the campaign. It's an interesting split that we've seen in other games, and it does present a more responsive, competitive experience. Though it can be hard to go back to the 30 frames per second campaign after playing a few rounds, since there is an adjustment period. Visually speaking though, it still manages to look excellent in multiplayer, even if the fidelity has taken a hit. The excellent anti-aliasing and light sharpening effect definitely bring image quality up beyond many other 900p titles, but there's only so much you can do when dealing with fewer pixels, so it's certainly not perfect. At least many of the details and effects work are still in play, including the excellent object motion blur. The real question here is one of performance then. In the beta, performance was pretty decent, but there were plenty of dips below the 60 frames per second line when things got heated. After spending several hours playing the game online, it's safe to say that we're definitely seeing some serious refinements here. It's still not quite perfect, but it's a far sight more stable than the beta. In fact, what you're seeing right now is pretty much what you're going to see for the majority of the game. A smooth, stable 60 frames per second. It looks great in motion and it feels great to play. The high frame rate and refined controls certainly allow it to play better than any previous Uncharted multiplayer modes. Of course, when testing an unpredictable multiplayer game, it's always difficult to issue a definitive statement on performance. Running into those worst case scenarios requires skill and a lot of luck, so we can never truly be sure just how low it could go. But in comparison to the older beta releases, which suffered from slowdown in nearly every round, we can at least report that in the final game, most of our rounds were completed with barely a hiccup in performance. I did manage to collect a few dips here and there, however, but it did take quite a lot of playing in order to actually run into any issues at all. Now, slowdown typically pops up when loads of characters are visible on screen along with plenty of alpha effects. When the two come together, you get something like this. So that's really all there is to it then. You get a mostly stable 60 frames per second with these excellent looking visuals. Now, seeing the results achieved here, I'm sure many folks might be wondering why they didn't just drop the single player mode to 900p and aim for 60 frames per second. After all, it certainly would have played better, but the truth is, there is simply more happening in the campaign that makes this pretty much impossible, we'd say. There is more in the way of physics calculation, loads of active AI elements, enhanced visual effects, and much larger levels. There simply isn't enough headroom here to reach 60 FPS, even if you drop the resolution to 900p, since that's not really the bottleneck here we're betting. Which of course begs the question as to whether the PlayStation Neo could actually offer the main game at 60 frames per second. That's obviously not something we could answer just yet, but between the enhanced GPU specs and the slight boost in CPU clock speed, it doesn't necessarily seem impossible. But I suppose we'll have to wait and find out. Anyways, that's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give us a hearty like and maybe even hit the subscribe button down there. And until next time, this is John, signing off.
Don't hurry, he's dead. Sam, goddammit! Sam!